Hi, I'm Amy Davis, and in this talk, I'd like to do two things: present a descriptive account of the Shawnee Woodland Powwow and discuss state recognition issues that I uncovered in my research. What I do not intend to do is determine which of the claims of the people who welcomed me for the weekend were founded in fact. I came to learn about the members of the Shawnee United Remnant Band, not to evaluate them. On August the 3rd and 4th of 2019, I attended the 22nd annual Shawnee Woodland Powwow on land owned by the Shawnee United Remnant Band near Bellefontaine, Ohio. Before we went, I read a little about the powwow on crazycrow.com. It was described on the website as a traditional, non-competition powwow with vending, camping, hiking, swimming, fishing, cave tours, a museum, and a restaurant. The first thing we saw when we got to the park was this sign. Note, it says Welcome to Indian Country. It also has a House Joint Resolution number dated 1980. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The park overall was a beautiful and modestly kept place, around 100 acres. All in all, around 60 people attended the two-day event. Most of the people were from the tribe, which boasts over 500 members, with some of the members living in small cabins on the property. There were few enough people that the museum tour, which required a guide, was not available. The salient aspect of the powwow was a circle that was a few hundred feet in circumference, marked off by a metal fence, stakes, and nylon rope. On the east side of the circle, there was an opening where the dancers and performers would enter and exit. Just to the north of the opening, there was a tent set up with a sound system and a man who called himself Sparrow, who was kind of like the caller for the event. Each day began with a grand entry in which all of the powwow dancers line up and were smudged in sage by one of the tribe's members, who called himself Stonebird. When this ritual was completed, 4 men from the tribe presented staffs that were secured to an easy up in the middle of the circle. The days ended similarly with the returning of the staff's ritual. The chief of the tribe, Hawk Pope, died unexpectedly in 2015, leaving his son too young to become chief. The son, Peshewa, is in his early 20s and is acting as interim chief. For the presentation of the staffs, he carried the nation's flag. Stonebird, the man who had been doing the smudging, carried the hawk staff. A young man named Shadow Wolf carried the eagle staff, and another named Pony carried the staff of the Kispoka warrior. The women also danced around the circle counterclockwise. When it was time to present the staffs, the women moved toward the outer edge of the circle. Once the staffs had been presented and the song about them sung, the circle was open for dancing. It was over 90 degrees and humid that weekend, and multiple drummers had not shown up, leaving 1 or 2 people to drum for the entire weekend. Most of the dances were called intertribal dances. Anyone with regalia or not, from any tribe or not, was welcome to come and dance. Most of the dancing resembled walking. Some of the special dances were a sneak-up dance, in which the dancer told a story with his dancing, and he and the drummer played a game where the drummer would stop unexpectedly and the dancer would pause until the drumming resumed. There was a candy dance for the children, in which the women of the tribe scattered candy all over the circle in a game similar to the sneak-up dance. When the drummer stopped drumming, the children were to pick up the candy, and when the drummer resumed, they were to continue dancing. There was a veterans dance for all veterans and a crow dance in which the dancers emulated the way they perceived crows to walk. Regalia at the event was widely varied from multiple tribal traditions. Many of these pieces were made by Melissa Pope, the wife of the late Chief Hawk Pope. Multiple people carried or wore animal parts. I asked one of the women what kind of feathers were used for the regalia, fans, and sacred objects. She said that their group used hawk, eagle, and turkey feathers, but they did not dance with hawk feathers at social gatherings because they believed them to be birds of war. The chief carried a staff that had the foot of a bird of prey of some variety. This was a bit surprising, as I thought only members of federally recognized Indian tribes could possess some of these objects because of the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act and the Migratory Birds Treaty Act. The largest gap I experienced between expectation and reality was the food. I was expecting the powwow staple of fry bread, which happens to be a favorite food for me. The vegetarian option available for me was grilled cheese and french fries. The available beverages were soda and bottled water. I was surprised by this because, as a fellow Ohioan, I know that this is an incredibly easy place to grow and gather food. I saw very little evidence at all of gardening on the property. The Ohio Valley natives were particularly agricultural, so it seemed a bit strange to me that this type of connection to the land was not being celebrated. It also surprised me that a large number of people were carrying McDonald's cups, and there was no recycling or compost. The powwow was marketed as a celebration of the earth. I was a little sad to see no efforts toward ecology. In conversations with women who had been in the tribe since the 70s, I learned that the tribe had purchased their land in part with proceeds from crafts it sold at the state fair. Judith Boyce, in her piece A Place Without Apology, tells the stories of how the Shawnee URB began purchasing land. The main sources of revenue for the tribe now are the cavern and museum tours, as well as items sold in their gift shop. There was, among the few vendors at the powwow, a tent advertising goods made by the Shawnee Remnant Band of Ohio. There were allusions to intertribal disagreements, and one of the women told me that the powwow used to be much bigger. She said at some point there were 3 a year, and some of the powwows had over 30 vendors. The vendor count, aside from the Shawnee URB tent, totaled 3 at this powwow. One man from Indiana who declared that he was Cherokee and explained that his photographs were Indian made. One man from Indiana who identified as Abenaki, and 2 people who appeared to be from South America with many goods from South America. None of the vendors seemed to be expecting the 60-person turnout. I later learned that Melassa and Jerry Hawk Pope had sang in the Disney movie Pocahontas, released in 1995. Hawk Pope is even credited with the death song. I wondered how this event had shrunk, and I wanted to know more about state recognition. Let's go back to that sign in the second part of this talk. The Los Angeles Times published a piece in 2007 written by David Lazarus, a business columnist, about the Shawnee United Remnant Band and a controversy involving coin pouches produced by the tribe for the 2004 commemoration of the expedition of Lewis and Clark during the time Thomas Jefferson was president. The circle of tribal advisors had been consulted, and the Shawnee United Remnant Band had been approved for the making of the pouches. The U.S. Mint was offering refunds for coin and pouch sets produced by the Shawnee United Remnant Band because the Mint had apparently discovered that the tribe was not state or federally recognized. In preparation for the article, Lazarus had contacted Chief Jerry Hawk Pope to get his opinion on the controversy. Pope had not heard of the recall and was particularly shocked because the tribe had attended hearings for the Ohio Legislature's Interstate Cooperation Committee in 1979, and the Ohio State Legislature had passed a joint resolution recognizing the Shawnee United Remnant Band. It was SUB.A.M.HJR.8, 1980. Lazarus had also contacted Meredith Stanton, the then director of the Arts and Crafts Board, who explained that the board had gotten a complaint about the legitimacy of the Shawnee United Remnant Band, and that the Arts and Crafts Board had contacted the Attorney General of Ohio, who expressed that the tribe was not state recognized. Lazarus then contacted Leo Jennings, the spokesperson for the Attorney General in Ohio, who said that the joint resolution was symbolic and ceremonial, not official. The Indian Arts and Crafts Act of 1990 does allow for state-recognized tribes to sell wares that are advertised as made by Native Americans, but the act does not spell out what that means. 5 states use legislative resolutions to recognize tribes. One of the most recent tribes recognized in this way is the Lipan Apache in Texas, who were recognized in 2009. Without the universal law or agreement in the subject seems not just the recognition, but also the rights of the state-recognized tribes remain muddy. Stories like this one, and the Wendat story told by Russell Barsh involving the burial rights of indigenous people, point to the idea that there is still a lot of work to do before the United States law and policy is applied equally to all indigenous people. I hope I've given you some food for thought. Thanks for listening.